And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Howdy folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a little card game here called Café. This is a game in which you are producing coffee in Brazil, shipping it to Portugal to different spots throughout history. It's a bit abstract, but it's about shipping coffee and producing coffee, and you do so from a card layout. In this game, you're going to be laying cards on top of each other, trying to make the perfect selection of actions that you can take. Let me show you. In this game, players are going to pick a company, and they'll start with a company and a starting card for that company. Now, these starting cards are all pretty much the same. They just have a different arrangement of the 6 icons that are on them, so it gives everybody kind of a slightly asymmetrical startup. You'll each also start with one of each color here of the different beans: yellow, brown, green, and red. You have this to keep track of your actions. Your actions will be equal to the number of coffee cups. See, the way this game works is you will be, over the course of the game, building a grid of cards. And there's 8 rounds in the game, and in each round, one person's the master player. They'll turn over 3 cards here in the middle, and one person will draft one. The person to their left, it's refilled immediately, and we keep going. When it comes back to the final player, the player who started it, they'll take one of the remaining 3 cards and discard the other 2. Each card that a player takes, they will cover up part of a cards that they have in play already. You must cover up 2 squares, 3 squares, or 4 squares. You can't go underneath, so it's up to you how you want to do it. So maybe I would do this, for example, on my turn, and then the next time I took a card, maybe I'll cover up that. You're trying to get different icons that are out there. After everyone has done that, each round, you'll get a number of actions equal to the cups that you have. Now, coffee cups are exciting. They give you more actions. However, when you take a card, it's free unless it has a coffee cup on it, in which case you need to pay a cube from your warehouse to take that. So this would have cost 1. This would not. There are 4 different actions you can take. They're lettered A, B, C, and D on the cards. You can produce. So this would be an action to produce there. However, I have a group of A's next to each other, so that would be a better action for me to take, because for one action I can produce in that whole group. And so obviously you want to set it up so that you have a big group together to produce in. Each of these spots can only hold 1. However, if you produce in multiple, the B action lets you dry beans. And you can put as many there as you want, as long as they're all from the same color. And then the C action lets you roast beans. And again, the roasters and the drying, if you have them next to each other, so if this would be here, for example, I could do 2 for the cost of only 1 action. And then from there, you do the most important action of all, which is you can take some of these cubes. You can always put them in your reserve, but you can also place them on these different shops. So here's Lisboa, which needs 1 brown cube. It needs a yellow and 2 reds. So for that as action, if I get these cubes there by the end of the game, I'm going to get 6 points. Now, this is part of how this game's going to work, and I just realized you can barely see Lisboa. There you go. Now, Lisboa takes up 2 squares. If I cover half of it up, it does not work. Although you can see this one here is only 1 square, and if I get a green cube there by the end of the game, I'll get 2 points. Putting cubes in your warehouse will also get you points. At the end of the game, you're going to look and see how many cubes you have of each type in your warehouse. The color you have the least of, you'll get 2 points for that, so this will just give me 2 points. And the color you have the second least of, here, yellow, I'd get 1 point for each. So here I get 4 points. Here I would get none. I would only get 2, because the green still counts even though I have none of it. So keeping cubes in your warehouse can get you extra points at the end of the game, but only if you build up evenly. You'll also notice there's some ship icons here. If I have ship icons, 2 ship icons, I can take cards for free even if they have a coffee cup on them. That's pretty much it. That's the whole game after 8 rounds. Whoever has the most points is the winner. There is a variant that you can play where instead of drafting cards, you can essentially put them out and players can bid for them, and it's a little bit more of a tighter thing there because some cards are clearly better than others. You know, this card here is an action and has a chance to get some points, and a brown bean has 2 empty squares, which makes it easy to put something else on. I may want that particular card at any given point. The components for the game, these are nice big cards. I really like how simplistic they are. I might argue that the green and the red here, they're very distinguishable, but the cubes themselves are not that way. The cubes are kind of this is not a colorblind friendly game, having green, red, and brown like they do here. So that's one of the things. I do like the cards, though. The rule book was pretty good, although it's really weird because they have these general rules here, and these general rules should have been mentioned earlier. For example, when you produce a cube, I'm like, well, what if it's empty? It doesn't say anywhere here. Well, it says it later on here in the general rules. That's problematic. It should have been mentioned here because there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked in that regard. Other than that, I was pretty happy with the rules. So it's a nice little production. The concept in Café, that of laying cards, is one of my favorite things in games. There's definitely several games that do it, but there's just something about putting cards down, and Café is going to make you go, oh, because you're going to have to cover up stuff. It's required. You're going to cover up stuff you don't want to cover up. Like, for example, your initial card that you have. So I have these 6 different things on my initial card. Which one of these am I going to pick? Am I going to cover up the producing ones, brown, yellow, and green here? I can't cover up my action. That's just insanity. Cover up the coffee roaster. I may not be doing roasting right away, so maybe that's worth, and the drying, so maybe I can do those. But it's tough decisions, and you will constantly be faced with that. I think the auction one's a slight bit better maybe, but it does lengthen the game out. Maybe too long, so possibly just the drafting one is better. It's a pretty fast game. And my only complaint about it, and the reason it doesn't get a higher one, is I feel like the game is like, ooh, now I'm starting to crank, and then it's over. I feel like maybe 2 or 3 more rounds feels like it could have been there. Also realizing that you got to produce the beans, put them on the drying, put them in the roaster, then deliver them, which means if you have some on your fields in round 7, you're like, oh, okay, I can get them there, but I'm running out of actions pretty quickly near the end of the game. You got to count your actions and figure them out. Definitely having more actions gives you a lot more things you can do, but every time you take an action, you're paying for it, and you also you have to leave those actions face up on your field where you might want other things to be. So that's kind of clever. This is a neat idea. It's a cool concept, and it's a game that I have a lot of fun playing. I think it scales well. They have some cards that are marked that you pull out if you're playing with less than 4 players. It's a nice 2-player game, back and forth, and it's fairly portable. This is not a big box to carry around, and it has a coffee theme. I'm not a big coffee drinker, as in I never drink it, but I can see why people would like it. So check it out. That's Café. I'm Tom Vasel. You've been watching the Dice Tower. Dice Tower Judgment approved.